Why do we always think that the grass is always greener somewhere else? 4 years ago, I moved to France. I was 24, newly married, and eager to be stretched by life, excited for the growth and adventures I would embark on. What I didn't expect was how different France seemed than what I had imagined. I thought the French would be rude and snobbish. Some assumptions I had ended up being entirely accurate, like how elegant the French are, how much they appreciate art, music, quality food, and simple, beautiful experiences. But as an American, there are some things I like and don't like about life here. No place in the world is perfect. So many of us want choices to be clear. We want things to be an 100% yes. But even the most wonderful places have downsides. There are a lot of things about life in France that I don't enjoy, but I love living here, infinitely more than my home country. Here are the things I love and don't love about living in France.
The thing that I like the most about the French is that they're so not entitled. They're very polite. They speak quietly. They never want to ruffle any feathers or, God forbid, disturb you. Just a few examples: they never cut in line. They wait patiently in line to get their bread at the boulangerie. Even if you're chatting with the boulanger, they will wait patiently for you to finish. Another great example is they put in headphones or earphones when they're listening to music. I don't know why, but every time I go back to the US, this is a thing I consistently see, is people playing music or having their phone out and just blaring music on the train, on the plane. Oh my gosh, the last airplane I took in the US, a guy literally was playing YouTube on the flight, and I actually had to ask him several times to please turn it off. I notice this every time I go to the US. Every time I go back to the US, there's always someone playing music or playing a podcast or playing YouTube really loudly and not being considerate of what other people might be thinking. And this is really the thing I love the most about the French. They are considerate of the group, of the collective, of what other people might be thinking, and so they're really polite and not entitled in their actions because of it. The thing I really love, they are so international. Like French people, you turn on France 24 and there's news about Africa, Sri Lanka, India, Australia. Like the news in Europe and in France, they talk about the whole world. It is not just American news. It is not just our country. Everything surrounds our country. It's like, no, we think about the global collective. We think about the world. And I love that about the French, and I love that about Europeans. And that mindset is such a big value of mine. And so I love it. Thank you. Thank you, France 24, for always showing news that is not just France. I also love how the French are multilingual. If you go to Alsace, a lot of French people speak German. I currently live in the Basque region in France, and a lot of people here speak Spanish, Basque, which is its own language that I hear all the time in the stores, and then also French. A lot of people speak English here in this region as well. So it's just really cool to see how multilingual a lot of people are here in France, depending on the region. If you go to Paris, it's pretty much only French, but if you go to different regions in France, there are a lot of other languages spoken. A couple of other things that I've noticed that I really love is how low maintenance they are about their appearance. It's short haircuts. I notice a lot of French women, both older and younger university students, have the short haircut, like shoulder length for women. Very clean, natural nails, no long acrylic nails. Very light makeup, no need to contour, no need to do all this stuff to the face. It's literally so simple. Also, incredibly soft-spoken, not loud, not in your face, abrasive. This is something I'm trying to get better at because I am definitely a louder American, and I have a big laugh, and I'm trying to work on that. I'm trying to take some tips from the French here. Their little basket that they carry around at the marché, it's so charming and cute. The French wear tighter clothes, like tightly fit clothes. Like a jean will be tight, it's not a skinny jean. It's just like a nice cut straight jean. Cute boots, it's very polished, and I really appreciate that like fit, polished, elegant aesthetic. It's really nice. Most common misconceptions and assumptions that I see about the French, and I've been getting this a lot recently. A lot of people have been saying, they think that the French are rude, or that they've heard that the French are rude or snobbish. I've heard this from so many people, and I kind of want to just put this out there. I don't know where that's coming from. Like, I really don't know where that idea has come from. I don't know if it's Emily in Paris, the Netflix show, or if it's just American media portraying the French to be like this ho ho ho, like this rude, snobbish, I know what's best, you know, self-righteous energy. I don't know what it is, but in my experience, I've lived here 4 years, I have experienced nothing but lovely energy from the French. And it depends on the region. You know, if you go to Paris, there's a lot more snobbish, rude people in Paris. I lived in Alsace for 2 years. People are really to themselves and more reserved and quiet and aren't very like chatty social butterfly like I am. If you go to Corsica, people are super warm and friendly and accepting, and I love the Corsicans so much. By the way, Corsicans get such a bad rap in France and abroad. I don't get it. I don't understand why, personally. My husband and I lived there for 2 years. Loveliest people, so warm, so friendly, so inviting. Have you over at their house, make you dinner. Like, it feels like that Italian culture of warmth and like, just come to our house. I love it. And now I'm in Basque Country for the next 2 years, and people are just amazing here. There's so many expats, so many Americans living in my town, so many like hippy dippy, you know, spiritual people that live in my area, and I love it. People are so friendly, people are so warm. I do not get the whole snobbery, rude assumption about French people. If you have an idea, please let me know down below in the comments, because I really kind of want to start a discussion about this, or like kind of just understand like, where is this coming from? Like, where are these assumptions coming from? Because my personal experience, I love the French, just lovely people. But no country is perfect, no culture is perfect. There are always flaws and things that are not great. And I'm going to share with you a couple of things I really don't like about the French and life in France in general. The thing that's probably the most difficult for me in terms of socialization and meeting people is the French are not very expressive. They don't really share how they're feeling on their face. They're very reserved. They pull it in. Because again, the French are very reserved, very polite. They don't want to bother you. They kind of walk on eggshells in terms of like keeping everything to themselves. You know, very polite, not entitled people. Love the French. But the downside of that is that they don't tell you how they feel. And also just that emotional expression. You know, this is something I have personally struggled with for the last 4 years, is really finding friends in France that are like good friends. Like, I've made a lot of friends here, but they're more like acquaintances. You know, I hang out with them, we get a coffee, we get lunch, but it's not like a close friendship. I have not found that in France yet over the last 4 years, and I think it's just because I am drawn to and feel that kinship and that camaraderie with kindred spirits who are more emotionally expressive and just more like kind of wearing their heart on their sleeves, you know, like fully expressing themselves and expressing that joy. And sometimes, you know, you'll meet a few people who are like that, but overall in France, that's not really the case. Another thing I really don't like about the French is how they can be very pessimistic. They complain a lot. And this is, I feel like, a stereotype, but it's because it's true. It's actually very accurate. The French complain a lot about their lot in life, and they complain about the things that they have no control over. And I feel like it's kind of partly like a social thing, like, let's come together and share our emotional struggles or share about the things that are annoying to us. For me, it just makes more sense to, you know, cry, get angry for a bit of time, but then move on and take action and fix the situation. But complaining to me is just a complete waste of time and energy, and it just seems to have no benefit.
One of the things I like least about life in France is the lower school education system. I've spoken to so many mothers, teenagers, and children about the school system here in France, and they all say the same thing. The hours are too long, and there's hardly any emphasis on extracurriculars after school. In France, there are strict expectations on performing well in academics. The long school days restrict kids from excelling in outside activities. That's one thing I loved growing up in the United States. How much the education system prioritizes those after-school activities for students, and also those shorter school hours. More time to live and play and sleep and do things besides homework.
A random thing that I really hate about life in France. Inconsistency. The French will close their stores, their restaurants, everything and they won't advertise it. They won't put it on Instagram, their social media page, Google Maps or whatever, Google Business. They just will shut down like 3 hours before closing. And that inconsistency of, is my coffee shop going to be open today? I don't know. I guess I got to go walk and see if it is, because they don't like publicly tell people. And this is something I really struggle with. One thing about life in France is that restaurants will be open from 12 to 2. So if you want to get lunch, you have to go between 12 and 2. If you show up at 2:15, you will not get lunch. But the thing that's even more difficult about that, and more tricky, is that sometimes those restaurants will close an hour earlier and they won't advertise it. If your favorite place is open for lunch between 12 and 2, and so you go over there, you show up at 1 and they're closed an hour early because kitchen's closed. It's just like, say something, communicate, please. Kitchen's closed. Oh, I hate hearing that. I hear that so often here in France, and it drives me up the wall. So if you get to a store 5 minutes, 10 minutes before closing time, they will often tell you the store is closed and like you can't pay with a credit card, or they'll start putting the gate down in front of the store like right on the dot, or even 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before. This is something that can be kind of annoying, because it's like there's been so many times where like I'm rushing to my favorite store to get something real quick and they'll be closing 10 minutes before, and I'm like, what's this? We still have 10 minutes here. We have 10 minutes. The store should not be closing yet. It's little things like that, and they don't care, not helpful, not sympathetic at all to what you want or what you need. Like that kind of like, I wouldn't say it's snobbish, but it's just a lack of sympathy for what you're going through. My husband can really attest to this one. Another really annoying thing about the French is they're very dismissive. And if something's not in their job description, they will hand it to someone else and basically make their problem someone else's. They're hard sticklers to the rules of administration. In terms of administration things, the French are not very helpful, and they're very unsympathetic, and basically they'll just make it someone else's problem, which is very frustrating, especially if, you're here on a visa. It can be very, very difficult to get things done on a timely manner. My husband and I have had so many instances where they've lost all my paperwork for my visa. I remember one time in Corsica, someone marked that my husband was a clergyman, even though he said in the application he's a teacher. And because of that little mistake, it took a year for Alex's paperwork to be accurate and to get finished and completed, because they kept moving the paperwork to someone else and it never was just done. I find the French to be quite inefficient with things. They just move the task to someone else and it never gets done, and a year will pass and it still isn't done, even though it's a tiny thing that will take 5 minutes to do in the computer. That's kind of what I'm talking about. My husband's an American and he applied for French citizenship because during COVID, he was a frontline worker, and they made this new rule that said if you were a frontline worker during COVID, you could expedite your citizenship process after paying taxes for a few years. And so he did that. He got the application turned in. He sent it well before the deadline, and then they changed the rules. They completely changed the rules last minute, and they didn't even make an announcement. It was like something we had to search for and find through like a group on Facebook or something. But basically they said that, they're no longer taking applications and all of that. And so it just, no transparency, no communication. It's just things like that. In terms of countries, like France is definitely not one of the easiest ones in terms of admin and like paperwork and just the bureaucratic red tape that's everywhere. It takes a really long time to get things done and accomplished, and but it's okay. I'd rather be in France than the US. So, the French smoke a lot, outdoors, indoors, everywhere. And I don't have a problem with smoking, but as someone who does have a fear of lung cancer, by the way, guys, I do a lot of research on this. Lung cancer, women in their 40s, never smoked, never smokers, definitely a rising case in lung cancer over the years. And it's something I've been researching for quite a while. It's always been my biggest fear in life is Lyme disease and lung cancer. You could get lung cancer and never have smoked. There's a lot of contributing factors to lung cancer, and there's more studies and research showing it recently and over the years. One of the leading contributing factors to lung cancer is secondhand smoke. And so, I'd rather prefer not to be constantly surrounded by smoke all day, but what can you do? This is the French way of life.
In my lifetime, I hope to live in many countries, on different continents, with widely different cultural beliefs, values, and landscapes. variety is what I seek. France is just the start to my lifelong promise of living long-term around this beautiful earth. This is only the beginning, but for now, France is home.